Okay, let's talk about canna lily. A lot of homeowners will buy canna lily in the spring and they'll plant it and grow it in their pots, and in the fall they just toss it out because they presume that it's just an annual. But the great thing about canna lily is that you can cut it off, pull out the rhizome, and then store it for the season after it's dried for about 7 days, replant it in the spring, and then you've got a whole new bushel of canna lily. So we're going to go through the steps today on how to cut off your canna lily, how to store it for winter, and use it in the spring. Now, in the fall, preferably before the first frost, but it can handle a frost, 1 or 2 frosts before it kills it. You'll want to cut it off right at the very bottom. So you'll notice that it's growing out in multiple stalks. We just want to cut them off about 1 inch or 2 just above the ground. We're going to trim that back even more once we get the rhizome out of the ground. Okay, so now you've got your canna lily cut off. You're left with some stems about 2 or 3 inches high. We're going to cut those off after. Now we need to take out the rhizome from the earth, and that can be a little bit tricky because you get a lot of roots on your rhizome. Now, let's have a look at what we're dealing with. These are roots. They grow off of the rhizome. We're going to cut those off. We don't need those when we store them to dry. The very interesting part about this plant is that now, if you look carefully, you can see this is a very healthy canna lily because we've already got eyes here shooting off of the rhizome. These are preparing now for next spring because they're already starting to get cold, and these are the shoots that are going to come up next spring. It's time to divide this canna lily. Now, this particular canna lily, we're going to divide it into 3 sections because it's already quite big. And next year, it already has a lot of potential to fill up one of these 7 or 10 gallon containers. So we're going to pull this apart, divide it into 3, let the rhizomes dry, and then we'll replant them in the spring. Now, a lot of people confuse the roots with the rhizome. A rhizome is technically just a stem that grows horizontally underground, and it has shoots on it like this, which often begin as little nubs like this that come up out of the ground. The roots are not necessary to be attached when you store it. You can cut the roots off and store it without the roots. It will grow new roots next year. A lot of experts will tell you to cut the roots off your canna lily because it will improve the way that it dries. It will dry a lot better, and the roots, they can tend to promote rot. So get rid of those. They don't need them for the winter. You just need the rhizome, which we'll explore a little bit more thoroughly when I get the roots off. And there you have it. This is ready to store and then be more thoroughly dried. Now, some people say I'm a little bit overkill when it comes to storing my rhizomes, but I like to get all of the dirt out as much as I can so that there's very minimum chance that we're going to have an issue with rot. The more dirt you get out, the more soil you get out, the more loam you get out, the better chance that your rhizome will be able to dry out completely. Okay, so once we've got the rhizome cleared up nicely, you can actually see it really clearly here. This is the rhizome from start to finish. You can actually tell that it's a horizontal stem that grows underground, and there's your shoots. So this is going to dry out really nicely. What I like to do is put them in a crate, a milk crate. So we just take some sticks. The milk crate's really good because it's nice and strong and it has a lot of support for the rhizomes, and they're not going to get damaged, or because the more bumping around that they get, the more bruising they get, the more susceptible they are to rot. So we're going to just put in a layer of sticks that my good friend Tim collected for me here. And we're just going to use the sticks to help divide the 2 layers so that there's some separation. They're not sitting right on top of each other, and we don't end up in a situation where they get bruised or they start to rot because the air can't flow through. So So there's just a little layer, easy enough. We just plunk the next layer on top, and then you just go to your next bin, and that's it. Store these in a nice, warm, dry place with good airflow. And next spring, when it's time to bring them out, probably around March, we'll plunk them in some soil, put them in a nice warm window, keep them moist, and then they're going to sprout right up, and they're going to boom next year. Okay, and that's how you take care of Canna lily. See you in the spring.